it.
Welcome to Wage Cucking with Jmo.
All right, guys, welcome to yet another episode of Wage Cucking with Jmo. Today we got my co-host Andreas, and we have a guest, Ansem. Ansem, how you doing?
What's good, guys? I'm doing good. Cannot complain.
Before we get started, you want to give us a little bit about your background, like how you got into crypto, and I guess what you're doing these days?
Yeah, so I originally got into crypto kind of my senior year of college. I went to Georgia Tech, was studying comp sci there. I was was in business.
CDS
And for my
University,
business
Georgia
minor,
Tech, I heard.
yeah, yeah, Georgia Tech. But yeah, for my minor in business, I had a class, like an emerging technologies class. And the professor was a big Bitcoin guy. So that's when I got my first intro to it. That was like 2016. And me and a ton of my boys, like we never bought any then, but we knew what it was. So I was like kind of my intro. And then when I graduated in 2017, I was working as a software engineer. And I had a mentor at my job who was also like super deep in the crypto. It's like, all right, I've heard of this already. I know like what the value prop is and why it's important generally. Let me look more into this. And yeah, that's when I started trading crypto. So I was like working as a software engineer and then trading crypto on the side. And that was like 2017. So you guys know like Bittrex, BitMEX, like all those sites was active on there. And then, yeah, made some money, lost some money 2018. 2019 was kind of active. Late 2019, 2020, early 2020 actually wasn't really that active in crypto. And then what was like during COVID, I was playing poker, online poker, still active on crypto Twitter. And like a lot of the crypto people were like who I was playing poker with. So then after DeFi Summer is like when I got more active in the trading again. And I was telling, like, I got a lot of people who were never into crypto during that summer. Everybody was home and like looking for shit to do. So people started trading on Uniswap, and shitcoins and all that. But none of the people whose intro to crypto was purely Uniswap and like DeFi knew about Bitcoin. So when I was talking about Bitcoin being at like 9, 10K, I'm like, dude, if this is another cycle, I just saw how the last cycle worked. I've been following Kobe and all of them, like talk about how cycles work, how the rotations work. There's no way Bitcoin doesn't at least go back to all-time high from like 9, 10K. And that was probably like September or whatever of like 2020. So that was like my first like big trade basically of that cycle, Bitcoin. And then did pretty well with DeFi stuff, like Rune, Nave, Uni. Solana was probably my biggest play. And yeah, just traded that entire like 2021 cycle. Went full-time crypto like mid 2021. And yeah, been trading it basically since then. I did a stint at VC for a little bit, like October 22 to like mid 20, no. Yeah, it's like mid 2023. And yeah, trading.
Yeah, so your comp sci background, I guess you got into trading pretty early. How did you learn to trade? I don't think like the comp sci background really helps in trading. I guess some of the skills sort of translate, but I find out that a lot of people in crypto that get into trading don't really have like a financial background or a background that allows them to learn trading very well, but they still see like a decent amount of success. So I guess talk a little bit about how you got in trading, how you learned, and how you I guess got good or at least profitable enough to do it full time.
Yeah, I mean, really a lot of trial and error. I think the book that I read on trading, the main one was Technical Analysis of Financial Markets by John Murphy.
Yeah.
That was like my baseline knowledge. But honestly, I learned probably 90% about like what I know on crypto trading from crypto Twitter. Like people like Kobe, like TraderMan, LoomDart. It's interesting with crypto. It's like knowing how these markets work is a lot more helpful than having a pure traditional finance background, in my opinion. That's what I've seen. Like a lot of the best traders in crypto, they weren't like whatever bank guys, like that pure background. just like understanding how narratives work, like how momentum shifts, like how the hive mind works in crypto, and like what people are going to be paying attention to is super, super helpful. And Kobe wrote a pretty good blog post on like the last cycle. He kind of was like the game of attention. And it's something that exists in all markets, but in crypto, because of how easily you can move capital around, like between different chains, like between different alts, it just like that is ramped up super, super quickly. See, I don't really have a exact way for how I did it. A lot of trial and error, losing money, making money,
Yeah.
and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me personally, I have a poker background as well. I was a professional poker player for probably like a little over 10 years. And I feel like there is a lot of poker players that transition into crypto, especially crypto trading, just because I feel like the skill set is sort of similar in a way. Like it's a lot about like analytical thinking and more so emotional control.
Yeah.
I feel like emotional control is one of the big things that like a lot of the current cycles new crypto traders don't have. They trade kind of emotionally, that they chase losses. They do all sorts of things when they're winning big or losing big that they shouldn't do. Whereas if you're like on your A game and you're trading well, regardless of the results, if your thesis and theory is still intact, you sort of need to have that emotional control in order to see long-term profits.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would say the psychological aspect of trading is by far the most important part, especially in crypto because of how the speculative fervor works. These parabolas exist in all markets, but like retail's activity in crypto, because it's so small still, makes them like a lot more apparent. Uh, and yeah, it's definitely how you end up keeping your money, is being able to control your emotions.
Yeah, it's interesting that your friends you got in during DeFi Summer, that they basically had no exposure to Bitcoin. Like in the previous cycles, we basically people get in through Bitcoin, and then that they learn about alts, that they learn about these markets and stuff like that. But like the fact that like Ethereum took off the last cycle, there was like DeFi Summer, there's stuff like Uniswap, Aave, and then even after that, there was alternate layer ones like AVAX, Solana. That there's obviously now like a million layer twos built on Ethereum, but there's a whole generation of people that have basically not really touched Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin's sort of a boring boomer coin. There isn't that much you can really do with Bitcoin besides hold it, and maybe trade it a little bit on centralized exchanges. Other than that, like the only a lot of people I know, at least like that got in the last cycle, the only Bitcoin they have is just like the wrap version of Bitcoin, where they're using it on like another chain. They're not even using it on like the main Bitcoin chain. So it's interesting how like these cycles progress. I'm curious what happens like the next cycle. I assume the majority of the action will be on Ethereum, or at least Ethereum, and then like some orthogonal layer ones. But who knows? There might be a new chain or like a new paradigm which people are trading in the future.
Do you do you also find that the people who joined during DeFi Summer are I call them like the multi-chain natives. Like they always had many chains, but if you tell a Bitcoin native person about that, they think you're crazy. Even just buying something else is difficult.
Yeah, the new cohort of guys are sick. Like I think the last cycle guys who did really well and are like were bridging to every chain first. They knew how all the yield farms work. Like they knew when to get out or learned how to get out. But we're really early trying all these new things, and they outperformed a ton of the older crypto guys who were like had a ton of Bitcoin but didn't want to test anything. They're like, we're not playing around with Uniswap. We're not going to try out Aave. Like we're not going to bridge to these other chains. Like their risk tolerance was just much lower than all these newer guys who are like, well, we're playing with like 1K, 5K, whatever we have. We're trying to flip that, spin that up 100x. But they learned a ton. I think those guys are going to be really important for the future of crypto, because they're going to be the ones trying out all these new applications. And you need those people who are willing to put their capital in these risky situations early, before it's like, okay, this makes sense for everybody else. Because if you had DeFi Summer, the reason DeFi Summer popped off is because you had these crypto natives who are willing to put their ETH and everything else and test out all these protocols.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. Like the future, you're going to see more differentiation in crypto. And I think Avi Feldman has talked about it a good bit. It's like there's alpha now in that not all altcoins move the same way at the same time, how they used to in previous cycles. And I wasn't around in 2013, 2014. But I've heard people say it was like, yeah, alts just went together because it really was hard to differentiate on the fundamentals between all these different coins and all these different layers. But now I think there's really going to be a way where investors and traders in crypto can take advantage of that if they're willing to put in the effort and really do the research on what makes these chains different from each other and which protocols on top of these chains are going to win out like longer term, especially because crypto is still so small.
I sort of had the same experience during DeFi Summer. I was trying to get quite a few of my old, basically people within crypto that I knew from maybe like 2013 to 2016 into yield farming, explaining to them that like I want to say this is like the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, maybe middle 2020 is somewhere around there when like I guess like the first big yield farm was yams on Ethereum.
Yep.
And then it sort of evolved from there. And then there was like Uniswap and then forked into SushiSwap and stuff like that. And it sort of took off. And then there was a whole lot going on Binance Smart Chain. It basically the model, I guess, was you provide liquidity and then you generate some sort of governance emissions token. And like the strategy from day one was obvious to me is like, we got to dump this token as fast as possible. People are putting this token in these like crazy pool twos where they're getting like 1,000% APY, but they're losing like 50% a day. So like none of this shit is sustainable. But yeah, so my experience with attempting to get these old these previous cycle Bitcoiners into yield farming was that they thought it was just like too complicated. They didn't understand the technology, even though it's like, at least I think it's pretty simple. I mean, like if you know how to use MetaMask or any wallet, you just got to figure out how to interact with like the user interface. You got to understand the concept of liquidity providing. But to them, they basically refused for like, I want to say like a year to a year and a half until it got more mainstream, and then they got in. But like the yields at that point were fractions of what they were during during DeFi Summer. And then like I look back and I always talk to them about it, and they're saying like I'm in this yield farm that's like generating like 8%, 10%, 12%, and I was explaining to them that like if you just did this 6 months ago, you're getting like 150%. You can compound it daily. You could be like, if you put in $1 million, you could be making like $20,000 a day in some of these farms. I guess there was a moment of regret in all of them. But yeah, it's interesting that every cycle I feel like there needs to be some sort of catalyst in order to bring the masses to, and it's interesting what the catalyst is and how it gets mainstream. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Solana because you've been pretty vocal about being bullish on Solana, and I guess I'm neutral to slightly bullish at the moment. Like I was one of the biggest proponents of Solana during the whole FTX era. I thought the technology was fantastic. The chain functioned very well. You can bridge back and forth pretty easily. The only downside I felt was that it wasn't EVM compatible, although I think they have some sort of EVM compatibility now, but I'm not completely sure. So like the barrier to entry was a little bit high for people that didn't want to install like it wanted to use MetaMask and wanted to use EVM and didn't want to install like Phantom or whatever wallet they wanted to use. So yeah, just I guess to talk a little bit of like your takes on the current Solana ecosystem and why you're bullish on it.
Yeah, I've been I've been a Solana proponent, I guess, for a while. I guess Solana for me, like that was my like a lot of people made their money off ETH, and for me that was Solana. So I've always been like a bit biased towards them. Like I bought it, whatever, like $1, like close to $1.50 last cycle. And the whole way up, people are like shitting on it, like saying like, oh, it's like it's worthless, like blah blah blah. And it just traded really well. But I think if you look back and compare Solana, how it was at its peak to how it is now, the network is actually a lot more performant now than it was back then. So it's interesting to see how people do the comparisons like today versus then. Like when Solana was at its peak, I think when Metaplex had just came out and they were figuring out all the NFT standards, one of Solana's biggest advantages was it's like super cheap, super fast. So for whenever they would do these big NFT mints, they would get spammed super, super hard by everybody.
Yeah.
By all these bots who are like, because they know it's like guaranteed profit if I can get in first, beat everybody else out. And there's no really cost at the same thing. We try to do the same thing on Ethereum. You're still paying you pay up a ton essentially to be first. Yeah. But it would break the chain because they didn't really have good flow control of how to prevent spam with how the network was designed back then. And they made a few like really big technical changes in the past year and a half or so that have been able to get the chain to a point where they haven't had any downtime at all in the past 6 months. And even when the Mad Lads mint happened, they didn't have any issues with downtime. So like the changes, I think, I want to say it was from the validators were using, I think, UDP as like their mechanism for doing data propagation. And now they're using something called Quick, which is a protocol built by Google. Essentially allows them to process spam a lot faster or like a lot more efficiently. And then on top of that, they also implemented fee markets, isolated fee markets. So like as some isolated application on Solana gets spammed, like you're going to have to pay more fees to get your transaction through, which as before, like there was just basically no fees at all. But the interesting thing on Solana is like, since they have parallel transaction processing, when fees spike on Ethereum, fees spike across the entire chain. When fees spike on one application on Solana, they don't spike in other areas of the global state, which is huge for being performant as a chain and allowing these like consumer applications to scale globally. Because if you have one application that's getting hammered, but that doesn't affect the rest of your blockchain, you can do so much more with applications built on top. And I don't think we've really seen this in practice yet, just because these blockchains are not getting used by that many people. But if you think like right now, we probably only have, I want to say, I don't know if this number is going to be accurate, like 20,000 daily actives in DeFi that are using DeFi every day, like being active in trading, whatever, using these apps, these lending, borrowing protocols. But if you think about crypto on a global scale, if you think that crypto is going to be used by 1 million plus people, it's not going to work if you can only do 10 to 15 transactions per second. So in my head, it's like something like Solana, what has this underlying technical architecture already. Once crypto does have these big applications where you're going to need a ton more consumers than are currently using these systems now, it makes the most sense to do that on Solana. So that's like why I'm bullish on them generally. And then also, if you just look at the teams that have like worked and built and like are active on Solana now versus back then, it's a huge difference. Back then we had like, I don't know, Maps, Oxy, I don't know what the, like, there's another one that was really bad. But a ton of these tokens that just had super high FDVs, team were really, they cashed out as soon as they like got their raises essentially, and just were not focused on building these apps. But now you have teams like Drift, like Gito, like Margin5, all these really strong protocols with strong founders that don't really care about SBF and that connection to him, but are focused more on the tech side and building for the long term. So I think it's an interesting spot. It's like they have a ton of overhang, like on the supply side and also just like public perception. But if you look at the upgrades that they've made and the people focus on the ecosystem, it's grown a ton in the past like couple of years.
Yeah, during the spam on Solana, I always get annoyed when people use that to FUD the chain, because it wasn't really like I mean, it was a technical issue, but it wasn't like an issue that couldn't be solved very easily. Like
Right.
the only reason it occurred was because there were basically no fees on Solana, so you can send
Yeah.
millions and millions of transactions for free. Which obviously, like this would happen with any chain, that there would be some data capacity limit, and then like the chain breaks. But it's not like they didn't understand that, and I mean, a simple fix would be to slightly raise the fees or establish a fee market, which is like super easy for them to do. So, like, yeah, it actually like really annoys me when Solana went down during like one of these NFT mints, and then like you see all the Ethereum crowd basically talking on Twitter about how Solana is down again, and it's a complete piece of shit because like it can't handle a mint. Whereas like if this existed on Ethereum, like the exact same thing would happen. I mean, in theory, the exact same thing does happen at a much smaller scale, right? Because like if a big issue with Ethereum is that it's a shared state machine, as they call it, meaning like if activity happens on one part of the blockchain, if there's a huge NFT mint where like millions of people are attempting to mint the same NFT, like literally every single dApp on Ethereum would be unusable for like 99% of the population, because the fee market would be up like 1,000%. People would be paying like $10 to $100 per transaction, and that literally prices out almost everyone that uses Ethereum. So let's talk a little bit more about Solana specifically. The issues it had post FTX. So like one of the reasons I was a little bit bearish on Solana as a whole is because at least in my eyes, the bull case for Solana at the time was that if FTX took over, and FTX was the global number one, stop for crypto, and they decided that this is our chain, then obviously Solana would have a huge future. But then, FTX goes down, but not only does FTX goes down, a lot of the major dApps on Solana were funded by FTX, and a lot of them, like you talked about a few of them, like Oxy, Maps, Serum, stuff like that. They were considered Sam coins, where they were invested by FTX, that they had like a high, fully diluted valuation. A lot of the tokens were locked. And it was questionable whether those projects would continue or would just give up. You have any thoughts on that? Like, is there still baggage within Solana from the whole FTX fallout, or do you think that they've like turned a new leaf and that they're just sort of doing their own thing right now?
I think there's definitely still baggage from a public perception point of view. So there's like, for people who haven't done their research on Solana and looked into what's going on behind the scenes, they just think in their head, oh, SBF is a scammer, SBF is FTX, FTX was Solana. And like that connection is super, super easy to make for the average person who hasn't done their research on Solana. So I do think that perception is something that still exists, and they're definitely going to have to work to fix it pretty actively. But I would say if you talk to the teams and the founders who are building on Solana, even back then, before FTX happened, because I was in Lisbon for Breakpoint last year, and it literally was the week before FTX blew up. And I was there talking to founders, like talking to builders in the ecosystem, and SBF was not there at all. Nobody even mentioned his name in any of like the presentations or anything, and nobody was really talking about him even a little bit. I was surprised. I thought it would be like slightly different, but everybody was excited about what was going on in the ecosystem and how they were working towards moving forward. Because they were excited about everything that they'd implemented over the past year, like starting to get traction in Solana DeFi, like you get like have the NFT standards, NFT compression. I mean, I'm talking to the Metaplex guys that were working on that. Like the partnership with Google Cloud was also going on around the same time. So just like a ton of like solid, like concrete things that you could point to see the ecosystem growing. And then FTX happened, and it went from literally $38 to like $8 in like 3 days or whatever it was. And it literally happened on the plane back from Lisbon to the States. Like we were all on the plane, and I get a text on my phone. I'm like half asleep. I get a text, and somebody's like, "Dude, check Twitter." I'm like, I'm trying to check Twitter. I don't even have like Wi-Fi connections not working. Like, I'll check it when I land. And somebody gets up and is like yelling at me, like, yo, dude, like, look at that. Like, somebody, and I remember somebody saying CZ just bought FTX. I was like, what are you guys talking about? I've literally been on the plane for 6 hours. There's no way it's happened in the time that we took off to being in the air. We landed, and I like reading through all this stuff that happened. Like, dude, what? Like, what is going on? But yeah, so I think that you definitely have the public side of it that you have to fix, but there's alpha in knowing, like, talking to founders in the Solana ecosystem, if you can, and like talking to people who are active in the community, because they were not even concerned with dude like months before shit happened. So that's how I look at it. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that I feel like there are some projects, or I guess there are quite a few projects that were only on Solana because they were funded by SAM or FTX. Yep. But then you still have a group of projects that basically have no affiliation with SAM or FTX, and they basically are using Solana because it has better infrastructure for what they're doing than Ethereum or the other layer ones. Like I remember I was talking to Gunny from Hero Network, and he I don't think Hero Network took any investment from FTX, but they were like one of the first. They were one of the first companies that started building like on Solana, and one of the things he was saying was like, we only use Solana because like it's a superior infrastructure for what we want to do and what we want to build in the future.
Yeah, there's a ton of teams like that. And I think what people don't realize is it takes a while for the developer ecosystem to grow in these like new layer ones. Like that takes time to do, building out all the dev tooling, like getting people who aren't in crypto to be excited about crypto. Like that's a whole process that takes years to do. And I think one thing that people miss when they compare Solana to these other L1s in their current form is that Solana has been through a ton of that growth for like years now. So even if you have a new chain that comes and maybe as technically like performant or able to do the same amount of throughput, they don't have as much developer mind share that I think that Solana does currently. And that's momentum that builds extremely quickly if you can tap into those communities. Because there's a ton of Rust devs outside of crypto, don't have any idea about crypto, but if you can convert them to be like, oh, well, maybe we should build something on Solana because it's cool to do. That's a more interesting piece for me is like the non-crypto people that aren't in crypto right now, not like the hive mind that we have on crypto Twitter where it's like ETH versus Solana versus whatever. It's like the people who want to build these globally like distributed applications, and what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, it gets a bit repetitive when like you just have like these maximalists, like whatever chain that they're stuck to, just arguing with each other rather than sort of thinking outside the box. I think one of the biggest criticisms of Solana from at least the Ethereum crowd is that because like the fees are low to basically non-existent, it doesn't drive value back to the token itself. Like if you bring up like the fee structure of Ethereum, obviously, it's inferior for the end user, right? You have to pay more per transaction. It's like way more expensive to use Ethereum. But in theory, it's better for the token holders because like every Ethereum dude will tell you like ETH is deflationary because like we're generating so many fees where like the chain is actually generating quite a bit of money for the holders, whereas Solana, it's essentially free still I mean, not really free, but it's like in comparison to most other chains, it's essentially free to do whatever you want on the chain, which is good for the user, obviously, but it's not great for if you're like a Solana holder where people aren't incentivized to buy the token in order to use it for something rather than just value speculation. So do you have any thoughts on that in terms of like the market cap or the valuation of Solana going forward?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on it. The way I think about current set of fees on Ethereum, I think it's really negative to like project that out as revenue because it's purely from taxing people using your network at extremely, extremely high levels. Like, I don't think it's sustainable to have that as revenue going forward, because the only reason it works in its current state, most of it is from just trading on Uniswap, all these meme coins that pop up and people are trading. But the only people willing to pay these fees are like mid-six, like seven-figure dudes who are just trading on Ethereum. They don't really care about paying these high fees because they're going to make more profit off whatever play they think.
Yeah,
like
the fees are small compared to like the size that they're trading.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a very small fee for them compared to their portfolio size. But if you take that to the average person, nobody is paying $100 per transaction ever, like on a consistent basis. The average person is just not doing that. So from my first point of view, it doesn't really make sense, doesn't scale long term. But then I would say if you look at Solana specifically, the fee issue is something that's a lot more fixable than fixing the network. So if you have a scalable network that's able to operate and do a ton more throughput at low fees, if you ever really ran into a situation where the validators were like, we can't run the network without getting paid this much, you can raise the base fee or raise it for all of the participants on the network. That's something that you can implement and fix. You can't fix the network not scaling. That's like a huge thing for me. And then the second part I would say is like, it is a lot more sustainable for businesses to build on top of Solana, whereas these same businesses who are trying to build on Ethereum, they literally cannot because of that same fees that are getting purported as revenue. But like you can build sustainable businesses that have like could have a lot higher profit margins or like can make a lot more profit. In that way, I think that's a lot more important for long-term crypto is like having these businesses, and then you can figure out a way to distribute it back to the network in some form. Like the same way that people pay AWS their fees, or their like it makes sense for them to pay those fees to AWS because their businesses are profitable in other ways. You can have that where like these businesses can make whatever revenues and then pay some of that back to validators or something. I think like long-term, it makes more sense to have that be the thesis.
Yeah, I feel like it's consensus even with the pro Ethereum crowd that Ethereum, at least the layer one, isn't going to scale or doesn't have the capability to scale. But then I think they would tell you that the long-term scaling would be, we'll just build a bunch of layer twos and we'll just use Ethereum layer one as like a settlement and security layer, and then like possibly build more layers on the layer twos. So just like moving on to the future of Ethereum, you think that's a reasonable way to scale the chain, or do they need to, figure out something else?
No, I think it's going to work. I think it's a reasonable like solution for how Ethereum is built. Like I think the L2 thesis is going to work out. They're going to have to do a lot of iterating on the execution side, specifically for the L2s. Like L2s are going to have to be as performant as whatever the best L1, like Solana, whatever the best like VM is, L2s are going to have to implement that. I definitely agree. That's going to have to be in state for them. But I think in short term, it's contradictory to have the same argument that Ethereum is the best chain because it's the most profitable and it's making like the most revenue from these high fees. And then also being like, we're going to build all these L2s on top of Ethereum, which are going to lower the fees on the base layer. Like you can't do both those things at the same time. You're going to need a ton more activity on these L2s to match the fees that are currently being paid on ETH L1. So when I see that argument held in tandem, I don't think it really makes sense. I just think like in the short term, you're going to have fees go down, activity on L2s go up. Ethereum's going to be less profitable. So is that bearish for ETH, bullish L2s, or is that like what's your argument there? I think is what people haven't really thought through.
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer just because like I feel like everyone has their own way to look at things. So like if you own Ethereum, like you want like millions of people to be paying these insanely high fees. Like if you're an Ethereum bag holder and you don't actually use the chain per se, Uniswap or anything like that, you don't want any layer twos. You just want like everyone to use Ethereum layer one. But then like if you want Ethereum to grow and scale and for more people to use it, regardless of the fee structure, you definitely want like a robust ecosystem of layer twos. But then like the layer twos reduce fees, and then like if you're an Ethereum holder, that's not good for you because like the value of Ethereum goes down as fees go down. So it's pretty interesting what the future holds for Ethereum, and then like other layer ones like Solana.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. I think crypto's in a really cool spot right now where everybody's kind of arguing with each other, but it's people are arguing with each other so like fervently because they know whoever wins out, it's like the prize for winning out is huge.
Yeah.
Like whoever is successful.
Yeah. I also
really
find it kind of interesting that people have already taken like basically they've taken sides. Like I feel like I'm in a state where I'm not completely sure who wins out long term. Like I like some aspects of a lot of chains. I also dislike some aspects of a lot of chains. But it's definitely not clear to me that like there's going to be a winner, and we already know the winner in the next like 5, 10, 20 years. So, but I feel like if you ever go on crypto Twitter, everyone speaks with like such conviction about the future, where in reality, like I doubt they have any clue what's going to happen.
I definitely agree, dude. Yeah, it's crypto Twitter is weird in a way. I think it's because of bag bias, honestly. Like people have a ton of money in these networks and are up a ton of money from being early to these networks. So it's kind of like a cult-like behavior. Which is, I mean, it's good. Like it's honestly part of the reason crypto has survived so long. Like the cult-like behavior of these Bitcoin maxis is why the bottom is always in like during these bear markets, because these guys, they don't care. They're not selling when stuff is down like 70, 80%. They don't really care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I think I try to remain objective in how I look at everything in crypto, because if you aren't objective, you're going to miss a ton of opportunities on like being early to new things and trying things out. Solana is interesting for me because I just feel like they don't get as much of like the bull support on crypto Twitter. Like it's a ton of overload on the ETH guys. And I feel like I have like a decent amount, like decently big platform now. Like let me try and balance things out like way I can. But yeah, I try to be objective.
Yeah, that makes sense. So next I wanted to talk a little bit about Friend.tech, because you've been pretty active in the Friend.tech streets. I've talked with Andreas a little bit about this. He got in Friend.tech a little bit, but I've had a more bearish take on Friend.tech compared to like the average crypto Twitter person. To me, like the idea is solid, but there are people that are basically thinking that it's going to be, you know, a top 5 market cap type project. Like the market cap is going to be somewhere between like 10-20 billion dollars, which I find kind of absurd. I feel like a lot of these projects pop up and they're sort of easily like copy pasted or vampire attacked, and like the you know, like I guess there's an advantage to being the first mover. But historically speaking, if you look at like the first DEX or the first like borrow lend platform, it's not necessarily the biggest one today, just because it was the first one to market. And I feel like there is quite a bit of room for competition, just because of like how the fee market works there, like the creator fees and the platform fees. And it seems like a platform that can be pretty easily replicated. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like it's developed in a way where like the technology can't be, you know, applied to like a different protocol, and it could run sort of the same or even better. So yeah, to talk a little bit about why you're bullish on Friend.tech.
Sorry, before you start, I gotta know what's your key price? What's your stats? How many key holders are there?
Let me check. Actually, I'll check it right now, bro.
Dude, I got kicked out of that app, and I have to log in with my phone number. I think I don't know what's up.
Oh, you got to fix dude. I'm at 2.5 ETH. It's like 4K.
Oh, wow.
You got to be one of the top dudes there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like top 20. And I think I have like 182 holders. So yeah. Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna be at the top when I made this thing. I thought the idea was cool, but I didn't think I was gonna be like near the top, which is cool. But yeah, so I think Friend.tech is cool to me because I've always liked the idea around social tokens, and the creator economy. Just like I don't think right now there exists something that allows people to bet on individuals directly in a way that they bet on companies. And in the past few years, we've seen like the influence of these personas or individuals online is just as strong, if not as strong as a lot of these big companies in like the Fortune, 4,500. And that's really crazy to see happen as everybody gets more online and more like invested in these social media platforms. But it's different like than just buying whatever, Twitter stock, Facebook stock, whatever. There's no way for people to bet on that. So that's like the 0 to 1 step. I think whoever can do the social tokens thing the right way, that's going to be equivalent to these other social medias long term if they do it correctly. I just think that's a really cool idea for people to be able to do. And then Friend.tech specifically, I think it's interesting for crypto. I think there's kind of like 3 ways I look at it. It's like one is people who have high value as their social capital in crypto. So people like Kobe, people like CL, who like are very well respected in the industry. People love them. Like they've proven themselves time and time over. Just being able to invest in their network and their influence is like, I think that has value. And that can fluctuate and go up and down as people think that value changes. So that's interesting. The second piece is like the subject matter experts. So crypto has a lot of paid groups. But I think even outside of crypto, you have these paid consultants for people who are experts in their industries, whether that's business, like tech, whatever, medical, whatever. People pay for high quality, high value information. That's a thing that happens and exists. And in Friend.tech, you kind of see the flow of that information happen in real time. Like one of the guys I like on Friend.tech, his name's Pelion Cap. He's like a trader. He's traded markets, I think, for like 20 plus years. Super smart on options. I'm reading through his chat. I got to look up like half the stuff he's talking about when I'm reading through his answers and stuff. But people like him, it's like that value that he has and is giving to people, that has a price on it. So being able to pay like a one-time fee, and now I'm like, okay, I'm a key holder. I can ask this dude questions whenever I want. That's cool and different from existing ways to do that, where it's like either you pay for one call, like do a consult for like $1,000, or you do somebody's Patreon, you do like a subscription model. Friend.tech is different in that you invest in their network, you like own their key, and then as more people think that their content has value, you also make money. So which I think that's interesting. You get the value add as well as like the upside. And then I would say the third thing is like the super fans aspect of society, which is really interesting. You see people who have these really strong relationships or parasocial relationships with celebrities, whether that be musicians, artists, like athletes, like players, and they'll pay, again, high price to get that proximity really close to them. I think you see it where people will pay for like thousands of dollars for VIP tickets to concerts or for meetups or like to get a signed football, like all those things. You kind of can group those together and like, okay, that's in their key price. Like say Taylor Swift is going to give all of her key holders lifetime access to all her concerts. And whenever she does events, they can come to her events, or like whenever she does meetups, like they're allowed to come, or like get signed memorabilia. All of that you can bake into that like one key that you own in that person's network. So that's like the 3 ways I kind of think about it. But I do agree it's really hard to do. Like it's super hard to create a new social network and then also get right like the bonding curve stuff, like the fees, how many people are you gonna like elect to be key holders? Right now, I think it gets pretty restricted when you get close to 10 ETH. Like once you're paying 10 ETH for a key, you need a ton more people to buy after you for you to like make a profit because of how the bonding curve works. But I think their intent was kind of to cap it around 250 people. So
you think like the current activity on Friend.tech is like you're saying for, the sort of private alpha, the sort of paid group type thing, or do you think it's more basically people speculating, thinking that if they put in a certain amount of money now, the value of these keys will go up in the future?
I think it's a lot on the airdrop. And like also the trading the keys, I would say those are probably the two strongest levers right now.
Mhm.
You're not gonna see the real amount that people want to spend in the network until that phase is over. So like once the airdrop or whatever it is, the points phase I think is done, and there's no more like, because right now people are speculating. They don't know if it's a token. They don't know if it's points in the app. They don't know how much it's going to be worth. They don't know how much it's going to cost. So in that speculative phase where there's not like a tangible value that you can put on it, and people are just like guessing and speculating, that's when stuff in crypto goes up, goes up the most.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have like, once it pulls back, then you have the flat line where it's like it finds its like happy medium, I would say.
Uh-huh.
But I would say it's a combination. Like there are definitely rooms that I'm in, like where I'd say I'm getting good value from, where that be like good on-chain traders or good like traders. Like it's a ton of interesting spots.
So your room specifically, I'm curious, what kind of alpha or what kind of commentary goes on there? I mean, you're one of the, I guess you're the top of the leaderboard almost. I'm curious what discussion happens there.
What I talk about, I talk about basically the same things that I talk about on Twitter, like talk about markets, what I think on like trading stuff. I actually answer a lot of questions that people have for me. So like I get a pretty good amount of questions every day, whether it's about their bags, like what I think about markets, or like just random stuff on Friend.tech, just like answering those. But really, it's not all that different from what I do on Twitter. I talked to, I don't know if you know Rhino. He's also like a Twitter guy trader. But yeah, I talked to him. We're like, we're gonna do streams for people who hold either my key or his key, and just do those weekly. Because people like hearing us talk about markets. So that's one thing where like I guess is a value add, but I don't want to be like, no, buy my key and I'm going to give you this. Or
so yeah, I understand. So your day to day, you don't really curate anything, right? Like you don't have something where you like have like a synopsis of your like your trading day, or it's just sort of responding to people's questions, and then it's sort of like your Twitter. You talk about a little bit of this here, a little bit of that there, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've done like some daily recaps where like, okay, all this stuff happened in Friend.tech today. This is what I think on it. I looked at these protocols today and like test this stuff out, did research on this. So I've done that. But yeah, generally it's more like what I post on Twitter and some extra AMA, some extra information.
That's interesting. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Twitter before we let you go today. I feel like crypto Twitter is in a kind of like weird spot where there's just like nonsense going on at all times, to a point where like there are some days where I don't really want to like read through it, or I don't really want to participate. Like I like think today is like a good example where like everyone is just it's just like BitBoy being arrested. I saw that video like reposted like 100 times today. And,
yeah,
like I don't give a fuck about BitBoy. Like, he has absolutely no value to me. Like he really has no value to like the crypto community as a whole, besides like having a large platform. But it's just stuff like that makes me want to be like less active in crypto Twitter. Like
don't you think part of it is just that there's so few people left? So everybody's like, literally anything is news if you had nothing to talk about.
Yeah. So I'm curious how you got active in the crypto Twitter, how you built such a following, and then like what is your take of the whole communities right now?
Yeah, dude, I got my followers really from just posting trades. Like I did when I told you when like Bitcoin was at 9K back in August, September 2020. I think in August of that year, I had like around 2K followers. And I think I had like 4 or 5K towards the end of 2020. And I'm always on that Twitter. It was my college Twitter. So like I always like was just tweet random stuff, like what I'm doing. Like when I would go out, I would tweet. And then like when I'm doing crypto stuff, I'll tweet charts, I'll tweet trades. And I always was doing that like 2017, 2018, but I didn't have a big following. It was just like whatever I was doing, I was tweeting because I'm always online. So whatever I was doing, I was like sharing online. And then bull market happened and I was obviously more active in trading. So I started posting the trades that I was taking. And I started posting trades. I hit a few of them like back to back to back to back. And then people were like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I started getting more followers. I think when I really blew up though was like I had a private journal on Twitter, and in my private journal I would post all of my trades, like RR, like whatever portfolio size I was allocating to it, like all my ideas in real time, and I would update it at the end of the week. Like I lost on this, I won on this, I lost on this, I won on this, and I would do monthly what I'm looking at for the month. And at first I was just doing it to have it on Twitter so like I can look back and see all the trades that I took. I was journaling in like other areas also, but it was cool to have it on Twitter. And it was a private journal, so it was like locked capped to the followers.
Yeah.
But then I posted, like somebody asked me to post something long form, like, dude, you're posting all these trades. Can you write something long form and like post it? So I was like, okay, what do I post it on? Somebody was like, yeah, do it on Substack. So I posted it on Substack and I shared it on the private journal. And then somebody reshared it in like public Twitter. And somebody reshared it in public and it like blew up. And they're like, who wrote this? And it was like, then they pointed to my account and I reshared it on my other account. And that's when I started getting like a ton of followers who were like, who is like, whatever, writing all this stuff. And then like, I just kind of kept going from there. I was on like Up Only, I think around the same time, like late 21. That's when like Kobe followed me. So I got a ton of followers off that. I think I went from like 50, 60K to like, that's jumped to like 80, 90K. But yeah, it was really just from posting trades, dude. And then like people, it's funny, my later followers are like, dude, why are you always like drunk posting like out on the weekends? I'm like, bro, this is my same Twitter that I've been tweeting on since I was in college, like freshman, sophomore year. I haven't changed the way that I tweeted. So it's just like, that's always been my account.
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty big fan of the long form format for. I think the biggest one in the crypto space is the Arthur Hayes blogs, where he puts them out maybe like once a month or once in a while, but they're always like eloquently written, and like even if I like agree or disagree with his takes within it, they're always like a great read. I never understood the value of like the. And not saying you do this, but like the value of people that are traders that just sort of post their trades online, but like don't give any, content besides like their directional bet. And like, I don't understand from like a third party perspective how you can derive anything from that besides like the best thing you can do is maybe copy trade, but then you have like your entry is probably a lot worse, and it's not generally not a profitable strategy to do. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the long form content where like at least sharp people in the space that I respect explain their thoughts in detail, so you can actually derive some information from what they're saying.
Yeah, Arthur's stuff is sick. I love reading his blogs too. The one cool thing about crypto is I think the access of information you have to all the smartest people, it's insane. You don't really have that in other industries where I can just hit up somebody and get like their thoughts on something, or they're going to share it for free. That happens a lot in crypto. I think the people on crypto Twitter underappreciate that a ton. Like being able to read that information, you don't have that really in other industries. Yeah,
in any industry, like the information is gated in some sort of way where your entry to that information, like you need to pay a decent amount, or you need to know someone that knows someone, stuff like that. But like there's a lot of information just on crypto Twitter. Like a lot of my friends ask me like, how do I learn about crypto? And I just send them some like feeds of like Twitter accounts I read. There's not like a book or like a website or something more traditional that you can really read through, besides because like I feel like crypto is different than basically any other industry. It just like changes from day to day. So like if you write a book about like the last cycle, the information in it means basically nothing today. Like everything changes within a few years. Right. I feel like one of the issues people have on crypto Twitter is being able to filter the actual alpha from people that know what they're talking about, to just like the noise from the people that have a large following from maybe a previous cycle, maybe from people like BitBoy, your buddy. I feel like your buddy Adam Cochran falls under this category. In the last podcast, me and Andreas talked a little bit about how annoying that guy is. Just posting like complete nonsense on Twitter. Like he basically posts. I want to say like once every hour for like years and years, and a lot of it's just like he's sort of eloquent in the way he explained things, and it seems like he understands crypto to some degree. But like a lot of what he posts is just like complete bullshit. I feel like he has some insider source that has told him that Binance is insolvent within a month or something like that, and all that shit is just it's just like annoying to read. And then the people sort of taking these influencers or these thought leaders seriously. I only bring that up because you had an interaction with Adam where he insulted Georgia Tech while as as a university that isn't fit to be teaching people computer science apparently, which I found like pretty hilarious considering like what he has like a political science degree and he's commenting on the current state of cryptocurrency. It's the whole situation is just ridiculous to me.
No, dude. Bro. I feel like people are starting to come at me more recently, and I don't really understand why or where it's really even coming from. Like one thing that happened, so like I was in support of one of my guys, like one of my friends' project, and it ended up getting hacked. And then from that, they're like, oh, this dude Z is a scammer, like he's like whatever, doing this, and this. And I understand the blowback from that to some extent, but it's like there's so many projects in crypto who go through that, like those issues. And like for you to be like, oh, this dude is a fucking idiot because like something he talked about got hacked. I was like, who are you to call me that and come at me? So that was like how that spat happened. But it's interesting. Like none of this happened when I had 5K followers. I could talk about whatever I wanted nonstop all day and people would like not care. But now it's like I have 100K followers. And it's like, well, now like I get attention from talking about Z. Like they know if I'm say something about Z, they're going to get engagement on Twitter. And you also get paid for that engagement now. So it's like there's a ton of people who are just like, oh, I'm going to go out all these big accounts. I'm going to be that guy who's like feeding off this. And just like that's their thing on Twitter. So I don't know, bro. Crypto Twitter is weird. I try to stay out of it for the most part and just stay in my lane, but I don't know, dude. It's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how much hate people get for certain things that are sort of trivial. Like for example, I see traders that I consider are pretty good traders. And this is true for literally every trader. Like every trader will have a losing trade, like 100%. You could be the best trader in the world. You can have a losing trade. But if you publish all your trades on Twitter, there's always going to be this one dude that's like, oh, you're shilling this coin at this price and it's down like 70%. You're a fraud, shit like that. Which, I mean, in a vacuum, it's true, but like in the greater body of things, like everyone has invested in. So like, I feel like the most successful people in crypto, the people that started with nothing, that had made like 6-7 figures, they've all had some investment where they've lost like 100%. Like 100% of them have had something that did not go well for them, and it's like all part of the process. Like it's going back to like the whole like a poker thing where like the reason I think poker is a good precursor for trading for crypto is in poker, you could be the best player in the world, but like you're losing maybe 30-40% of the time just because of like the day-to-day variance.
I think the reason it works is because these people are not actually traders or poker players. So they don't understand that you are taking thousands of trades. You may lose 30-40% of them and you're still net profitable by a fuck ton if you hit big in a lot of these spots. And you don't even have to have a super high hit rate as long as you are managing your risk well. But these people don't have that concept in their heads because they're not actually trading or like doing these things where you're in these risk environments and making these bets. So it's like when you can point to somebody and say, oh, this is down 90%, it's like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. When it's really like, I may have been out of that trade 2 weeks after I posted that, or like 3 weeks after I posted that. Like I have parameters where it's like, oh, I got to get out if this happens. And you can't really convey all of that in short form on Twitter or even long form. Like really, you can't be like, oh, I wrote this, but then something happened and I changed my mind. And now it's like, I got to go back and I'm not going to go back and edit the document to be like, well, now I'm not in this, like, you know what I'm saying? So the trade lives forever once you post something.
Yeah,
I learned that, like, once you post something, it's there forever. It doesn't really matter what you do after.
I feel like there's something to be said about the people that that don't delete their tweets. Like I feel like there are quite a few people that are, you know, they might have a paid group, they have some like following, they have some successful trades, some not successful, and then they attempt to erase their not successful ones, or maybe they don't even post their not successful ones. So then like the public only gets like a glimpse of what they're really doing. And if you only present good information to them, that like in obviously hindsight is 2020, but if you only present good information to them, if you post like 10 winning trades in a row and you don't post any of your losing trades, like it may seem like you're the best trader in the world, whereas like you might have had like 12 losing trades in the same time frame that you just don't want to make public.
Exactly, and that's a big issue for why people outside of crypto have the perception of crypto that they do, because people like BitBoy and others, like on crypto YouTube, they'll share all of this information, but they'll present it as I won on all of these trades and I never took any losses. And even the people who watch their previous videos, in their head, it's like, if somebody's telling me this and they have a ton of followers, like they have 1 million subscribers, they must be telling me the truth. And then they like assign this value of truth to these people who are big online, and they never share any of their losses. And then these people just keep getting more following. And it's like the people who are more like objective and sharing their losses, like, oh no, I lost on this, I lost on this, I only won 50% of my trades this month. Yeah, those are the people you should be trusting. But for the average person, they don't see that. Like they don't have the ability to differentiate between who is like being honest with them and who is scamming them. Like it's a difficult thing. Like crypto Twitter versus crypto YouTube, I think is a really interesting dichotomy, actually.
I'm not a fan of crypto YouTube as a whole. Besides our podcast, and I guess I like Up Only when they had Up Only. I'm good friends with Kobe and Ledger. That they're good people. We had Ledger on the podcast like a few months ago. So, but other than that, like I feel like most of the content is like either shilling some nonsense or it just not really that good.
Yeah, I've like thought about it a lot. There has to be a way that you can hit that same, it's like sales. It's like hit that same sales funnel where you can get to 1 million plus subscribers, but you're also not scamming people. And you're also not like, you're being honest with the information that you're sharing. Like obviously Kobe and Ledger did a great job of that with Up Only, but I think we need more content like that in crypto. Definitely 100%.
Maybe you should start it. Because I mean, Kobe and Ledger show, that was a great show, but it didn't have that. There were not that many people watching it. It was very niche. I loved it. Up Only.
Oh yeah.
Considering how big they are in crypto Twitter, it's on YouTube. It wasn't that big.
Yeah.
And it's like you say. I wish there were real shows that like I would watch. That is not somebody shouting at me to buy something that is obviously a scam, and like drawing lines and charts to the point where they become memes, right? So,
have you guys seen the? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should. Have you guys seen the show where? It's like a new show. It's like a game show where like they're gonna pick the crypto project. Did you see that?
I saw that. It's run by it's run by like CoinMarketCap or something like that.
Shark Tank, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Shark Tank thing. It had like it had that I forgot his name now. The older guy, the politician who likes crypto. It had like Wendy O or something like that.
Yeah, dude, like how like all those shows get a ton of funding, but we need shows like kind of like not like that, but something along those lines where it's kind of more entertainment based, but also has the like knowledge, that like general information that's solid. I just have no idea how to do it. I don't even have a YouTube. I have Twitch. But I do think there's a lane for that to happen in crypto. I just don't know what.
I actually had that exact idea in 2017 during the ICO boom. Like I was talking to some people about this, but I was thinking we could have a shitcoin Shark Tank where you would just have like 3 or 4 because like during that time, like the ICO boom, there was probably like hundreds of ICOs launching every month, you know. So you'd have like you'd have like a weekly show where like 2 or 3 ICOs pitch you their token, and then you mostly turn them down and tell them it's going to zero, but there might be there might be something in there that's like sort of investable, but I guess I was lazy at the time and nothing really took off.
Yeah, no, that could be a cool idea. I don't know, man. I feel like somebody's gonna figure it out. We have to, especially if we get like prices that start going up. People are gonna be like, "Oh, we can find something cool now. Cool now. It's not depressing anymore."
All right, I think that's all we have for today. Andreas, you have anything else?
Nope.
Before we let you go today, you want to let the listeners and watchers know where to find you? Maybe your Twitter, Friend.tech, your Substack.
My Friend.tech.
You're doing?
We'll link to the Friend.tech. Don't worry about that. We'll get you some more. We'll get you some elite key holders.
Let's go. But yeah, my Twitter is blknoiz06, and then my other Twitter, like my trading one, is CONZIMP. And I'm always on Twitter, so that's probably the best place to reach out and hit me.
And I do have a question. What are some guests you think we should have on the show? Somebody you know, somebody you don't know, like somebody you respect?
I think you guys should try. I think L would be cool. I don't know if you know L. He's kind of a smaller account. He's an on-chain trader. He's pretty solid.
Oh, that would be interesting.
He's been like blowing up a ton, a good bit. He's had some good calls in the past few months. He reminds me actually of my account. Like when I was smaller, he was calling out like different narratives, and like during the summer, he was like calling out stuff. Kind of did a good job rotating capital. He's actually on Friend.tech too. I think he's like 3 point something.
What about somebody building a project you like on Solana?
The Jito guys are really cool. The MarginFi guys are really cool. Jito is like, what's bro's name? Buffalo on Twitter. He's super smart dude. Jito is focusing on MEV infra for Solana, and they also have a liquid staking token. And then liquid staking platform. And then MarginFi guys are like a lending borrowing platform, and they're pretty active on Twitter.
I've used I like MarginFi. Maybe I'll hit them up and see if they want to come on and chat about it.
Yeah. They definitely would be down. Those guys I like them because they're also like kind of more aggro on Solana Twitter. Like they talk shit to the ETH guys back. So I like them. But yeah, they're cool.
All right, cool. Well, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun.